Welcome to this rapid revision session looking at the massacre at Wounded Knee. Before I continue, I will say that there are lots of videos on YouTube about this which will go into far more detail. However, this is designed to just give a brief overview of what you would need for the GCSE exam, or to give a brief overview in general if you're just being introduced to this topic. So I hope it will be sufficient for that. Firstly, let's get a bit of context, specifically about the ghost dance. The ghost dance. In 1890, a Paiute Indian, Wavoka, pictured below, had a vision in which the Great Spirit brought the dead Indians back to life and a great flood would sweep the whites away. The ghost dance that was supposed to encourage this spread rapidly and whites felt very threatened. Take a moment to think about that mythology there. A resurrection and a great flood. Sound familiar? Essentially, this is the influence of Christianity beginning to work its way into the Plains Indian spirituality as well. The resurrection being that is promised to Christians on the Judgment Day, and the Great Flood being an echo of the Noah's Ark story. On December the 15th, 1890, Sitting Bull was arrested on suspicion of organising an uprising of ghost dancers. He wasn't, but during his arrest, Sitting Bull was shot and killed, ironically by one of the Indian police. The followers fled south to join another refugee band led by Bigfoot and to continue the ghost dance. So why was the ghost dance seen as such a threat to the whites? Well, ultimately, this was something that united many different tribes, and previously these tribes might have been as likely to fight each other as to become allies. And yet, with the ghost dance, there was a sign that there was some unity among the Indian peoples. And that is exactly what the US government did not want. On a previous rapid revision video, I looked at the gradual process of the removal of the Plains Indians' lifestyle and way of life. From the destruction of the buffalo, to the forcing of Indians onto the reservations, to the taking away of their culture, for example through education, and ultimately the Dawes Act, which encouraged them to farm like white people. But ultimately the culmination of all this is the Wounded Knee massacre. On December the 29th of 1890, the last big clash between the US Army and the Indians happened. It was very one-sided. Chief Bigfoot and the Indian refugees were halted by the 7th Cavalry, the same unit that Custer had led. The cavalry tried to take a Sioux warrior's weapons, other Indians began to ghost dance, and in all of this confusion a shot was fired. Around 250 Indians, mostly women and children, were massacred by the 7th Cavalry. So to call it a battle isn't necessarily accurate. So what was the legacy of Wounded Knee? It's become a very important concluding point in the story of relations between the Plains Indians and the US government. We can see in the photograph at the top right that Chief Bigfoot has fallen into the snow, died, and as the snow has thawed around him, his frozen body has been left in a grotesque and unnatural pose. The ghost dance reflected the desperate hope of the Indians that supernatural powers would save them, but they did not. The Wounded Knee massacre reflected the fear of white people that the Indians would rise up after their terrible treatment, but after Wounded Knee, they could not rise up. Most of the American public saw Wounded Knee as revenge for the Battle of the Little Big Horn. They saw the Indians as savages that had to change or suffer the same fate as the Indians at Wounded Knee. In 1890, the Indian frontier was declared closed. Nowhere in the US belonged to anyone but the United States of America. The phrase is sometimes used, how the West was won. Well, if it was indeed won, it was probably won from the Plains Indians. And ultimately, after the closure of the Indian frontier, the West was won. The painting in the bottom right shows an idea of this idea of manifest destiny. We can see on the left, representing the West, the Plains Indians retreating, nature retreating, and the buffalo retreating. Meanwhile, so-called Western civilization, represented by the woman in white carrying the book, the wagon trains, the prospectors and settlers, the farmers, the railroads and the telegraphs are taking over. And ultimately manifest destiny was achieved, if we consider the conquering of the entire United States of America and the North American continent as being the object of manifest destiny. Some final points then. The ghost dance represented the desperation of the Indians. Wounded Knee marked the end of any realistic Indian resistance. It was not a battle by any normal definition. A paranoid and vengeful 7th Cavalry exacted a massacre on Indian refugees. With the Indian frontier closed, the expansion west was considered complete. Manifest destiny had been achieved. And that's the concluding video on this series about the American West. I hope it's been useful to you, and if it has, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're going to be taking an exam on this, then I wish you all the best with your studies and for your result. Hopefully, if you've done all of this, you'll have a really good grasp of the basic knowledge. There will be other videos, though, on exam skills, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Thanks very much for watching, and on that note, I'll say goodbye.